Hello Ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to part 2 of my ARK Survival Evolved guide for pretty much noobs who are downloading it for the first time as it's free on the Epic Games Store, or maybe you're trying ARK for the first time at some point in 2020. Hopefully this guide's going to help you. I've explained all the servers, the game modes, the settings, as well as the different types of maps that you can play on in ARK Survival Evolved in part 1. Go and check out that video if you need any more help. And I have got over 1800 videos on ARK. The majority of them are news as well as guides and tutorials, so go and check out if you need any more help, all my playlists. Right, today though it's about playing ARK and some of the stuff you're going to find when you get in there. What is it? What are the caves, the artifacts? What can you do with crafting? How do you get blueprints? How do you get extra XP? I'm going to pretty much explain how to play ARK. So starting off with the character selection screen, be careful when you're doing this. It's quite comical what you can do. It's not the best. Wildcard simply used it because it was cheap and easy, and they planned to revamp it but they never got around to it. But this character type can be used across multiple servers, so it's making sure you've got the right one. Then you're going to choose what area you want. You've got easy, medium and hard. Do not choose a hard or medium setting. Even on an easy one, as you're about to see, I'm going to get murdered by a raptor. It's a common occurrence. You will die a lot in ARK. Maybe not on the same level as Dark Souls. Actually, maybe you will. It's a pretty tough game. There's a whole host of different wildlife around, and just like I said, I'm about to get murdered by this raptor. It's a common occurrence. But each time you spawn, even if you choose the same location, you'll actually find you spawn just somewhere slightly different, maybe a couple hundred meters or yards in another direction, but usually around that same area. If you've turned on the body bag settings, you should be able to go back and retrieve your bag with all of its stuff. You do drop everything when you die, and there's usually a beam of green lights that you can see fairly close by if you need to go and get your stuff back. One of the things that needs explaining is these loot drops. You can get pretty much a variety of different loot drops that have different levels of gear and items in them, and what you'll find is they're segregated off by level. So you need to be level 3 to activate the very basic ones, the white ones, and then it goes up usually like level 20 or 30 I do believe to get to the next level. There's yellow drops, there's red drops, there's purple, there's green, there's blue. It takes a good few minutes for them to fall to the ground like this, and they'll remain on the ground for anyone to access for a short while. On PvE servers, it can be a real race to grab some of these sometimes, as they can sometimes contain some really good stuff, and PvP are definitely a good way to get yourself some quick loot. You find loot drops in all sorts of other places. You'll find loot crates in caves. That's another good reason to go and explore while trying to find some of the artifacts, which I'm going to explain. Although some of the later game like Genesis pretty much done away with some loot crates, and you pretty much only got loot from completing missions. There will be a video in the comment section showcasing exactly what level unlocks what with the beacons or the loot drops. After that, it's about gathering. Obviously gathering everything you can see. Bushes will give you lots of berries and fibre, and you can get different tools that will give you much bigger yields. Dinosaurs are obviously your biggest tools. It's a dinosaur game. They've all got their individual uses. Some definitely get you much more resources than others. Be careful when punching trees. If you punch trees too much, you're actually taking small amounts of damage and can kill you. Let's go into the inventory and crafting system. This year inventory is going to showcase everything you've got. Obviously, you can do things like drop it or split it, and you can see you've got various different berries. Some of these berries do certain things. They keep you awake. Other ones you use to keep dinosaurs asleep so you can tame them longer. When you click on crafting, you've got access to a pickaxe, a torch, and an explorer note. Now let's go over the engrams. Engrams, you will be able to choose what you want to unlock each time you get a level. There are hundreds and hundreds of engrams, and certain engrams you won't be able to access until you're at that level. So you will not be able to unlock every single engram if you're playing just on your own in single player, unless you use some sort of cheats. Remember, ARK is meant to be a multiplayer game, so the idea is that you'll tribe up with some others and you'll decide which one of you is going to unlock certain engrams. You'll find things like saddles for dinosaurs, all sorts of armor, weapons, build pieces and construction tables. Each time you level up, you can go all up to level 100, you will gain some engram points, and these engram points will multiply as you get higher, but like I said, you won't have enough to buy every single one. If you look in the top right corner, you can choose which map or ARK has certain engrams. Remember, the paid DLC has items that you're not able to use unless you've actually bought it, but on single player you can spawn the majority of these in, so if you do want to mess around with some of this stuff, you can do. And also when you visit some of the other islands, the free maps, you'll generally find that some of them are unlocked too. After that, you've got the tech gear. This is the end game content to make you feel like a Power Ranger. You've got special spacesuits that allow you to jet through the sky, to huge power-up jumps, as well as give you the ability to unlock tech plasma pistols and things like cloning stations and more advanced tech saddles for your creatures. These do not automatically unlock at level 100. You're going to have to defeat bosses to gain access to some of these, and they all need to be crafted inside a replicator. This stuff really is the endgame content that a lot of people will be striving for, although lots of ARK players don't actually like the tech items and the tech lore and history. They actually prefer playing ARK with more primitive stuff, me included. You won't find any tech gear in the primitive plus mode. It's strictly all just more primitive items. Generally, tech gear is much more expensive to craft and make, but it's usually quicker, more reliable, and you normally can use the crafting stations to make even more resources. You can even craft underwater pods, so you can build underwater bases and a whole lot more. So we'll come to that in a future guide, a little bit more detail about tech gear. You're not going to be aiming for that right away. You'll gain experience, and this is what levels you up. You get experience pretty much from gathering, harvesting and killing, especially alpha creatures. Once you've got a level, you can put it into health, stamina, oxygen, food, temperature, and then you've got weight, melee damage, movement speed and crafting skill. Some of these skills will increase by a value of 10 unless you've changed the settings, but lots of them will only increase by incremental amounts, so it might only be a value of like 2 or 3 that they increase by. If you're playing PvP, a lot of people will go for movement speed so they can dodge other players and obviously getting a lot out of their health pool. That's probably a good way to go. For single player, for you guys, I would say stamina is a good one to make sure you have, and plenty of weight unless you've boosted your weight settings. After that, you've got your engram points. You can go ahead and start spending them on stuff. I've unlocked the spear and the stone hatchet there, and as I said, as you gain more, you'll be able to unlock a lot more. If you come across an item that you've taken from another player or been given, you generally can use it. The exception to this is tech items. Even if you're given some tech items, you won't be able to use it until you've defeated the bosses that unlock it. And as I said, each boss unlocks certain different tech engrams. I'm going to use a cheat just to show you guys a bunch of resources and pretty much how you can make armor and certain tools. So you go ahead and crafting now. I've unlocked my pickaxe. I can go ahead and craft one. It takes a good few seconds for it to increase. Increasing crafting skill will mean that you craft items a lot quicker, and it can sometimes affect the quality of them, if I remember rightly. Eventually, when you're using crafting benches, you'll make better quality. Each item that you've got has got different levels. You can get journeyman, ascendant, master craft. There's all sorts of basic levels that mean they've got much better durability, and they may do much better damage, or more, you'll get more resources. A lot of the higher level items that you can get, as I said, like Journeyman or like Mastercraft, you'll find them via blueprints in loot drops, and this is why loot drops are so good, and they'll give you 1 time or 2 time use, sometimes up to maybe 10 or 15 times. You'll be able to use that blueprint to craft an item. So again, even if you're under level, if you find a blueprint for it and you've got the resources, you should be able to craft it up until how many times that blueprint says. Let's take a look at some of the other tabs. You've got your tribe commands, or pretty much how you can organise your tribe. Name your tribe. You can see on the right hand side you've got a log telling you everything that's going on. If any of your creatures are killed or anyone's base raiding you, it will usually give the answer to who's been doing it if you're on certain servers, whereas you can customise and edit this so it doesn't show. Here you can kick new members out of your tribe if you're playing on a private server, etc. And then you've got tame ordering groups. Now this is pretty much where you can put all of your creatures in different groups. Maybe you've got a group of raptors that are like your attack pack, then you can put them into group 1, and when you whistle a certain command, they will all act and move. And then you've got other groups that obviously if you just got herbivores that are for farming and you don't want them to all rush an enemy, then you can put them in another group. So it takes a bit of time getting used to, but you've got plenty of radial wheels where you can decide which group does what. Next on the tab you've got the Explorer notes. Now Explorer notes are scattered all around the paid DLC maps. You generally don't find them on the free maps, and you'll also find Explorer notes even in boss arenas occasionally. So always look out for some of these. They're normally in little chests like this or in pots, and you'll find them also in a lot of ruins scattered around. They'll give you some actual benefit. Each Explorer note is going to give you 2 times the amount of XP for everything you do, so it's well worth making sure you got one of these before taking on an alpha creature where you get lots of XP, or if you're going to be doing lots of crafting so you get the most out of it. It stacks as well, so you can get them to last for ages. Each one that you find lasts around 10 minutes as well, and it works on your dinosaurs. If you're riding a dinosaur, you find an Explorer note, your dinosaur also gets the buff for experience too. As well as that, they give you a bit of lore and a bit of story explaining what's going on with previous survivors and how they've gone around exploring the island, and also give you some tips sometimes on some of the creatures you find. You'll also find this is the way to get dossiers of the dinosaurs. Back in the day when you killed a dinosaur or tamed it, you were given a dossier and explained exactly how that creature could be tamed and some other benefits. But now they've scattered them all around inside these explorer note chests, and so you have to go and find that information for yourself. So coming back out of that into our inventory tab, you can see there's a bunch of little boxes next to the search box. The very first box there is pretty much transfer items. So whenever you're looking at something else, you can transfer your items into another container. The second box, it gives you the ability to drop everything in your inventory in one bag. Then the third will sort everything by weight or alphabet status, and then the third you can create subfolders. So if you want to put stuff in certain areas, then you've got your other folder which will put everything in folders to make it easier to find stuff. And then you've got tooltips if you want to play without any help at all and just go by the pictures, then that's what that will do. Pretty much every item you craft has durability, so it's only got a limited amount of uses before you have to craft another one, or you can repair it with certain items. I'm using another cheat right now, which is just simply type in GCM and you'll be basically given access to every single engram. You can craft whatever you want and you're in creative mode where pretty much nothing can really kill you. You can also fly around too. To turn it off, you simply put GCM again, and that's how you turn it off, and you saw all the engrams there. Most components or items that are crafted are done so in crafting benches, but there are a few that when you use GCM, you can simply just go ahead and take as many as you want. I'm crafting some armor up here, and now I'm going to equip it, and you can see it goes into the slots on the right hand side. And you've got the offhand slot, which you can put little chibis, which are like collectible little skins, creatures that will follow you around, as well as other stuff. You can add a bunch of different skins to these too. There is a whole bunch of skins that you can unlock during events, special events that happen a few times a year, or maybe defeating certain bosses. You'll gain access to skins that transform how your armor looks. So I've got my points, I'm just putting stuff up now, and pretty much GCM will give you pretty much infinite health, but you can actually still be killed. Normally, in fact, it gives you 500 health, and so if a dinosaur hits you, it has to do more than 500 damage for it to kill you outright. There are a few creatures that can do that, so don't always assume that GCM means you are completely invincible. Another command you just saw me put in was God mode, and this will definitely guarantee that nothing can really kill you. This is not really a top tips guide for playing ARK and how to get the best out of certain resources or what dinosaurs are the best. It is just give you the basics of how you can play the game. Whether that includes using cheats is up to you. But you can see I'm zipping around using the GCM commands. Usually you double tap on the spacebar to fly, and it should make sure that you're going around, and you can control how fast you go by using usually shift. If you're using a controller, it's usually the A button or the X button if you're using a PlayStation controller, and then usually RB or R1, I do believe. No, LB and L1 to control the speed. What you're seeing there is the obelisk, and obviously a big dinosaur, the Titan. This is a special creature. Only a couple of them will spawn on a map, and once you've tamed them, they're a limited time tame. Only a few of these are like that, but it's pretty much an OP dinosaur to take some time and go and pretty much raid other bases with. This is obviously the obelisk. This is where you're going to transfer your character, transfer items to other maps, and take on the boss fights. This green one is the Broodmother, and it's got 3 different levels. Each boss fight has the same levels: Gamma, Beta and Alpha, with Alpha being the hardest. Gamma usually is unlocked at level 35 for the Broodmother, but some of the other bosses may be a little bit higher. Alpha you won't be able to try until you're level 100. On top of that, you normally have to have defeated it, I do believe, at least once the lower level before. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, any real big ARK experts out there. But that's what you need. You need certain things to activate the boss fight, so you'll teleport to its lair. Usually artifacts. We'll go through artifacts in a minute, but sometimes you also need something called apex drops. Apex drops are items that you find from certain creatures when you kill them, so like alpha raptor claws, or you may find a vertebrae from a sauropod, which is like a bronto. So yeah, whenever you kill quite a hard or tough creature, make sure you're harvesting it with your weapons or your dinosaur, and check that you've picked up any of these apex items, and make sure you're keeping them somewhere safe for later use. So, like I said, we'll go explore some of the other obelisks in a minute. On top of that, we've got crafting. This is where you craft your tech replicator. So once you've defeated the bosses that unlock it, you'll need to come to a obelisk and then go ahead and craft the replicator here, and then you can take that replicator with you pretty much and dump it anywhere you want. Another few things you can get are pretty much cryopods and cryofridges. Wildcard try to help a lot with performance, which usually means there's lots of dinosaurs, and to help alleviate hundreds of dinosaurs being lying around your base, they basically made it Pokemon. So you can put your dinosaurs in these little Pokeballs and pretty much put them in a fridge so they'll keep forever, or a long time at least anyway, as long as it's powered up. So they pretty much allowed everyone to unlock this and make this because it helps with performance rather than have everyone just rely on beating tech before they can unlock it. If you press M on the keyboard, it's going to bring up the map, or the old-fashioned select button, it'll bring up the map. And then the map usually has a fog of war, so it won't reveal the whole map unless you've actually gone around exploring it. You've got latitude and longitude, and you can put markers on the map as well. So make sure you're pressing, I think it's R or T. I ain't going to lie, I can't remember, but it'll be there in the keyboard bindings. So make sure you use it well, just so that you can get around and remember where stuff is. Here's another drop that I mentioned earlier. You've got a yellow one that's going to give you certain stuff, but you won't be able to access it until you're level 50. So I'm showing off the biomes. We've got the Redwoods Biome, which is pretty much in the center of the map. This was added pretty much near the end of Wildcard's early access period. You've got fighters that will jump at you from big trees. You can put tree platforms on them and build actual bases in the trees, like a little Ewok village if you unlock them. There's usually some mountains and hills around this areas too, and this is where you're going to find metal. This is what metal looks like. You'll also find a big abundance of things like crystal, and they're normally on the mountains. This is what you're going to need to make glass. On top of that, I will show you some of the other key resources too. But here you can see the redwood goes all along. On the right hand side, we've got the volcano. We're going to come back to that in a second. Let's go over to the red obelisk and show what boss it is here and a few other things. So the red obelisk is where you will take on the dragon, and it's meant to be the last boss fight before you go and take on the uber overseer, spoilers, which is part of something I'm going to show you later. If you guys really enjoying these guides, I may do some up-to-date versions on how to defeat some of these bosses and what you can expect, but you can see all the resources you're going to need to actually summon it or go teleport to it, and again, lots of artifacts. Generally on the island map, the base map, the further north you go, the harder it gets, with different types of creatures spawning that are more dangerous. The redwoods can be quite a challenge as well. The southern areas are normally some of the safest. As you go north, some areas are going to be really cold, and that can start affecting you. Here's where I found that explorer note that I showed you guys earlier. Okay, some resource gathering now. I'm going to show you where you get oil, and also I'm going to show you where you can get some pearls. These are two resources that you're going to need for sort of mid to late game. This is a oil deposit. You pretty much hack away at it with usually an iron pickaxe, and you'll be able to get oil. If you use different types of tools and different things, you will get different resources. So using a stone pickaxe will only get you stone. In the oceans, you'll find lots of different resources like oil as well as iron and other bits, but something here on the very low shallows is silica bowls, and you can get different types of silica bowls. Black silica bowls will often be found right at the bottom of the deepest trenches or even in some creatures, whereas the normal silica bowls are often more shallow places. There is a huge underwater section to Ark Survival Evolved on most of the maps. A few have got completely landlocked, but the island does have a bunch of underwater caves that you're going to need to go to get artifacts if you want to do the boss fights. So you're going to have to invest in water taming eventually. Let's go up to the top of the mountain. This is where the blue and third obelisk is, and this is where you're going to take on the Mega Pittacus, the giant monkey. I'm not putting locations down for these. You're not going to need to go to any of this until you're well established and you've got a base going, and by then I'm sure you'll have found a guide exactly where they are if you haven't come across them yourself. So it's just to give you a brief heads up of what to expect. But same thing, put your artifacts in there, put the items in there, and you'll be able to go to his lair. To survive in colder areas, you're going to need to put your temperature up, or your fortitude, as well as make sure that you've got good armor on. Certain pieces of armor will keep you protected against cold better than others. Likewise, some pieces of armor will make you too hot, so it's a bit of a balance. This is the volcano, really important. There's lots of resources like metal, crystal and obsidian, which I'm going to show you, but this is where you'll come for the end game. Once you've defeated all the bosses, you come here to take on the final boss fight. It's a huge challenge. I don't want to spoil it completely, but beyond this tech door there is a massive pathway, and it's going to be filled with all sorts of dangers. Once you get to the end of that pathway, there is another boss you're going to have to take on. You can see it needs the trophies that you gain from defeating all the other bosses if you want to take on the final ascension. And once again, you also need more apex items, drops from creatures and dinosaurs to enable you going through the tech ascension. On official servers, there's certain spots you can't build. Normally where it's got lots of resources like these, you won't be able to build a base, it's kind of blocked off. That was obsidian I just showed you. You're going to need that for a lot of recipes and items to craft as well. So that's the volcano. Let's go around and show you a cave now. And pretty much, I'm not going to go through the caves separately. In this video, I should say, I've done quite a lot of them separately, but I will show you what a cave looks like, as well as saying hello to some of the creatures in Ark Survival Evolved. You've got hyenas and you've got scorpions here. Great job. Some of the creatures will just knock you out. They'll take down your torpor, and it's a big no-no getting knocked out, because you can have some of these creatures then come and kill you just as quick. So we're at the location to one of the caves, and like I said, there's a bunch of different caves on all of the maps, and this is where you're going to find the artifacts. I'm not going to go through it, as I said, because I've done it before in other guides, and I don't think this is going to be the time, as the video is getting on already for pretty long. But make sure you've got a save point, put a bed down, that's how you save your progress, by sleeping or putting a bed down, and make sure you've got some sort of small mini base nearby whenever you go and do a cave run, just in case you do die, and you can get back in there pretty quick and easy. So yeah, there's a big river that goes down the middle of Ark. It pretty much separates a lot of the biomes. What I'm actually going to show you now is some of the radial wheels. By holding certain keys or certain buttons on a controller, you'll find them in the keypad bindings. You will come up with a bunch of stuff that will show you can do different types of emotes. You can whistle to your creatures or your tames to either attack or to stand still and not attack. You've also got the ability to poop. These are the different modes you can do: salute, cheer, etc. Some of them even turn on lights. Certain creatures give you light, and that's what they do. Then you've got your ordering groups, so you can decide if you want to also go into third person, or you can go orbit cam. And that's pretty much winding down a little bit. I'm just going to show you what you can do to transmit your creatures or transfer them across the different maps. If you go to an obelisk, you can click on the tabs and it's got creatures and ARK data. This is where you'll upload your dinosaurs, and any that are near you, they'll be uploaded, and pretty much you can go to another map and you can then download your items or your dinosaurs or your character. And that's pretty much how you do it. Eventually you'll get access to a tech piece of equipment that you'll be able to do this from your own base. Base building is incredibly important, obviously in PvP and obviously PvE, to get everything set up. When you're building items, when you've crafted them, they have weight to them, so you can get over encumbered if you build too many items and try carrying it. You've got around 30 seconds normally to pick up items if you accidentally put it in the wrong spot. This is a relatively recent addition, only coming in last year, but it's godsend. It really stops you wasting resources. So you can pick it up, you can change it to a block format, or you can demolish that piece and get certain resources back. When you're okay at building, you'll find that it goes green just like it was just there, but in certain spots you can't build, it will be red. Normally on official server settings, it's a bit more restrictive. There are certain points you can't build, and even if you're on a kind of little bit of a slope, it's very hard to build in certain spots. So there is a setting you can turn off on your single player called clip into foundations, or I've shown it off in the first guide, so go and check out that guide if you need more help, but it'll basically allow you to build a lot more. You can build upwards pretty high, in fact as high as you almost want on a single foundation, but a foundation only has a limited range. So if you start building outwards from that foundation, whether it's a ceiling piece or maybe walls, you'll find you can only build actually 2 pieces across before it starts saying that you no longer be able to build. So in effect, one foundation can go 3 outwards. Building and watching people's builds creations is one of my favourite things to watch in Ark, so I won't necessarily go into too much, but there's plenty of people you should follow in my channel section recommended to go and see how people really build. And I'm sure you've probably already found people building some amazing bases. But yeah, just to highlight that red obviously is a bit of a problem. You can make that easier by turning on the setting in single player so that you can pretty much put it and clip it into the scenery or into the mesh. So we've got creatures, dinosaurs, all different levels, up to level 140 on the island, 150 on the centre map, unless you tick the box that all dinosaurs will spawn at max difficulty. There are various different ones. It can take weeks literally to grab and breed some of these dinosaurs. In fact, it can take up to 36 hours just to tame certain dinosaurs like a Ferrazino or a high level Giga. I'm chucking this at the end here because I'm probably going to do a proper detailed guide on taming, what it's like maybe on official server settings, and comparatively what different types of creatures you can tame. Some creatures you tame by knocking out, other creatures you have to tame by feeding them, literally putting berries in their bum, and there's some more complex ones on some of the DLC, but it definitely needs a separate video. I hope this has been useful for you guys starting out a brand new life in ARK in 2020 or as part of buying it or getting it for free on the Epic Games Store. Let me know what you like about ARK so far and go and check out all my other guides. Like I said, I've done hundreds and hundreds of guides, tutorials, where lots of them may be a bit old. Pretty much nothing much has changed other than the UI. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'll see you rat bags later.